You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
Preview time as we get you set for the Giants and the Commanders, and it's all presented by FanDuel. Bob Papa, Carl Banks, and Carl, we are ready to go. Believe in Giants regular season edition. With the Giants opening up against the Commanders on Sunday afternoon. And I know this has been a fun week, and we've kind of been dialed in on everything that's going on in the facility. There's a lot of energy. Everybody was in there on their day off on Tuesday. But now it's for real. I know you and Coach Dable had a chance to sit together on our TV show. You went above the X's and O's. There's a lot to unpack here. What has you most excited?
I love the energy of what's going on offensively, but the optimism on the defensive front is something that I'm excited about, because even I went back and looked at both games from last year, and the Giants had a lot of success rushing the passer. Right. And so I'm like, okay, stop the run. They will be able to have an impact on this game. But, the emphasis, and I don't want people to think that this is something that coaches don't do on a regular basis, but the emphasis on fundamentals and tackling that we saw throughout the preseason, from the number one group to the guys who didn't make the team. You saw, even in the last preseason game, the tackling was good. And that just tells me that the players bought in to what's important, and that your veterans bought into, hey, we got to finish plays. I mean, we saw some clips from Kayvon Thibodeau, working with a wrestling instructor, grappling, right? And saying, I got to be able to finish. I got to be able to finish plays. I got to be able to get people down. That seems to be a theme that resonated from the minute they got pads on, because you saw it and you could tell it was an emphasis. Coaches emphasize every year, we got to tackle better. We got to tackle better. But when the players buy in at that level and say, yes, you're right, coach, and we're going to hold each other accountable, because when we look at this practice film, we're going to show you that we're tackling better. And that could be an advantage early on in the season, because we've seen it, and we're going to see it again this season. The first 3 or 4 games, so many missed tackles, so much poor technique. And we've seen a shift for some teams that were starting to play their top line guys more in the preseason. Others stayed status quo, but there were some teams that started to play their veterans and their starters more in preseason. And I think they kind of took that cue from Andy Reid, because he's never shied away from playing his players in the preseason. So that should serve them well, and I'm excited to see the defense on the field.
Yeah, last year they gave up 136 yards a game rushing. And you remember in week 2 down in Washington, Brian Robinson, who's not on the Commanders anymore, had 17 carries for 133 against the Giants. Mm-hmm. And look, I love the additions with Roy Robertson, Harris, Chauncey Golston. I like the growth of what they're doing as far as guys on the defensive front are concerned. And obviously Dexter Lawrence being back from his elbow injury. I think DJ Davidson, Darius Alexander, obviously developing players. So, yeah, can they choke off the run in this game? It's interesting too, Carl, because Washington had so much success last year. They were, let me take a look at the notes here. They were number 3 in the NFL in rushing yards, 154 a game, and they had 25 rushing touchdowns. A lot of it was the quarterback.
The quarterback like 50 or 60 is probably the quarterback every game.
He had 891, so yeah, you do the math.
Yeah.
But they've revamped their offensive line. Their left tackle from last year, Brandon Coleman, is now the left guard. They brought in 31-year-old Laramie Tunsil to play left tackle, who's, a 5-time Pro Bowler. Went to the Pro Bowl last year playing for Houston. Sam Cosmi is hurt, the right guard. And Josh Connolly, the rookie, is going to start, at least supposedly. So only Tyler Badash, the center, is the only returning starter. And, it'll be interesting to see what kind of havoc the Giants can cause for that group, because it is not a group that has been together coming off last year's NFC Championship game. It's a new configuration.
It's a new configuration. And again, with the additions of Roy Robinson Harris, which is a major addition because as a 3 technique, he's very explosive, very long, and he plays the run well. Chauncey Golston is kind of, when we have these conversations, he's kind of the forgotten guy in terms of the hot topics, if you will. But he's steady Eddie in there. Like, he's consistent, fundamentally sound in the fact that the Giants have rotational depth that can change the tempo of their defense is something that the opponents will have to account for, right? They don't have the same guy coming in. Like Roy Robinson Harris on first and second downs, he's a super explosive guy off the ball. But even on third downs, if he's in there in whatever package, he's not going to be counted out. He's going to be counted on to create pressure. And so they have a lot of different roles these guys can play without really getting really gimmicky, right? So if Roy Robinson Harris is in, he may not be your primary 2 rushers, but his job is to collapse the pocket and to get long and to be able to come off a block if the quarterback steps up into the pocket. So it's a lot of stuff that they can do, and they can rotate their players, and it just gives their offensive line different things to worry about because they have, like I said, rotational depth that will be able to contribute.
Carl, I'm really curious how the Giants are going to handle defensively when Washington spreads the Giants out a little bit, and then they choose to run Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel has the most rushing yards of any wide receiver in the NFL since 2021, 958. He's got 17 rushing touchdowns. And in his first 6 seasons, he's got over 4,000 yards receiving, over 1,000 yards rushing. He joins 3 Hall of Famers, Charlie Taylor, Lenny Moore, and Bobby Mitchell, as the only guys
2
to
Redskins.
have 4,000. Yeah, right, exactly. Taylor and Bobby Mitchell. So how will the Giants, do you think, deal with when they go 3 wide and they have you spread out in a pass look and suddenly Deebo's running with the football? How do you deal with him?
Well, the thing with Deebo, if he's not detached from the formation, then you might as well count him as a running back. And so you put your gap responsibilities for whatever the run could be out of that formation, anticipate him getting the ball. They do a lot of motion and a lot of trickery up front. And so your front 3 are going to have to be sound. Now, the one thing that you'll notice about Washington when you see them, they're a perimeter team. They're not they run inside, but they do it. Their inside runs come off of some offset direction. So it's from right to left, the guy goes inside, or from left to right, he goes on an inside run. There's no direct inside runs from
now
them,
that Robinson's gone, especially.
Right. So you just have to know that you've got to be sound on the edges and funnel everything back inside. That's another area that the Giants were good at this preseason, setting the edge. Every guy knew what the assignment was. But if Deebo's in, anticipate him touching the ball, right? So if he's in the backfield and there are 3 wide receivers, a couple things can happen. He's going to flare out. They're going to throw him a swing pass or a screen pass, right? Or somehow they're going to get somebody in motion and he's going to get the ball running across the formation back to the perimeter. I mean, that's what they are. They're a perimeter passing team and they're a perimeter run team. Now, their perimeter passes can go from right to left. Like you see these deep crossing over routes, right? But they want to challenge your perimeter. Now, the other thing that the Giants can do when they get into these different types of configurations, you got 2A and 2B as cornerbacks, right? One guy's a little more physical than the other. And then you got Drew Phillips. So the Giants can play a little bit of that cat and mouse too. And you could put your 3 top corners out there and still have Drew Phillips on the field. So they can get some configurations going to try to offset that.
What about this Giants secondary, Carl? I mean, we've talked about it a lot during the preseason. Obviously, McLaurin has been a fantastic player for years. This is the first time that Terry McLaurin is going to go into a season with the same known starting quarterback as he finished the previous year with.
Yeah.
You compliment Deebo Samuel. In the red zone and on third downs, Ertz is going to get you. They're going to look for Ertz. Ertz is, in 11 career games against the Giants, he's got 7 career touchdown catches. How do the Giants get better in this area? How do you see them handling it with their personnel?
Again, like for me, and I'm hoping that this is the same view and even more detailed from Shane Bowen than me as a guy who's not in those meeting rooms, is instead of counting personnel, you really got to see how their offense, what they want to do offensively. And then you can start to insert personnel. So in the field, like I said, they're a perimeter team. In the red zone, they're a little more vertical, but it's still off of some bunch action, some trickery to get a guy open. So if you're playing spot zone or spot man, zone to man coverage, you just can't ignore their key players. Like once schematically what they want to do, then you say, okay, here are the key players in this area of the field. And if it's McCurlin, he's running the back of the end zone, right? They're doing something to get him lost, and then he's running the back of the end zone. If it's Ertz, it could be out of a bunch. It could be out of a bunch formation, and he slips out, and he's not part of the bunch. But just understanding how they schematically want to attack you is the key. And then you insert which players are what. This guy likes to do this. This guy likes to do that. But, if McCurlin's in the red zone, look for him to get behind you and run the baseline. They're going to try to hit him with something in the baseline if it's not a fade. So just understanding that. And, I see it because I study this, and they spend even more time on it. So I'm sure that's what they are going to do. And then the other part of it is when they get in these bunch formations, right? And the Giants struggled a bit last year. Not a bit. They struggled with it last year on how to play the bunch formations. I think they'll be better at that. I think they understand how they should do that. And I think when you reverse engineer it, and I think that's what Coach Dable did, because he's big on red zone offense and how to attack a defense. So I think what he did is reverse engineered it and just put his stuff out there, and then went on the defensive side of the ball to say, okay, how can my team defend what I'm doing? And I think they got better at that, just working, in reverse order, because Dabo's all about trying to figure out how to get a guy open in the red zone off of his bunch and all of those different things. And it was just him against his defense. And now it's like, okay, now I'm going to sit on this side of the ball. I'm going to look at how my defense is playing this. And then I'm going to really try to figure out how, if somebody had to stop me, what they would have to do. And then you start to put in these different rules, right? Tight bunch, loose bunch, 2-man bunch, versus 3-man bunch. How do you man it? Do you zone it off? Do you switch it? So there are so many different rules, but that's the thing when you're playing Cliff Kingsbury, communication in the red zone is so important. And so when you have the rules in place, there's no guesswork. And you see it every week, Bob, when guys are in the red zone and you see a guy pop open loose and there's a guy that's standing there looking at his guy like, I thought,
yeah.
And they're doing this back and forth because it's like, oh, were we supposed to switch that? I got picked. Was I supposed to stay on the pick? So there, the rules, when you start to put them in place you're not just practicing what Washington could do, but if Brian Daboll says, okay, offense, run my red zone, and then he stands on the defensive side of the ball with Shane Bowen and said, okay, you can't be at the same level here. You got to stagger here. You got to switch. Create some rules for your defense so that the communication is clear no matter what the formation is, because teams will get in these bunch formations, and if you're not paying attention, a 3-man bunch can be a loose one or it can be stacked, right? And the same rules don't apply, right? If it's a loose bunch, you can swap and trade things off, right, in man coverage. But if it's a tight one, you're going to have to zone it off. You're going to have to have a rule. You're going to have your leverage, and you have to play rules outside in or inside out. And, you have to play it that way. But, communication down there against Kingsbury's offense is key, because they will do a lot of different things to get guys open, but understanding their key guys, where they like to get them the football. And that's, like I said, McCurlin will run that baseline in the back of the end zone, but you'll lose him somewhere off of a bunch, or he might be running basically like an over route from one side of the field to the other on the back of the end zone.
All right, we're going to get to the other side of the ball in just a second. But, it's not easy in today's world to find great candidates if you're looking to hire somebody. And sometimes it could be like a needle in a haystack. A lot of resumes, a lot of stuff online, not enough candidates with the right skills. But now ZipRecruiter can help you out. They find the amazing candidates for you and fast. Now, they have this powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter exclusive technology, which weeds out a lot of people for you. So basically what they're doing is they're streamlining the process for you so that you're going to get the qualified candidates and you're not sifting through and wasting a lot of time with people. They're going to connect you with the top candidates as soon as possible. And they also have ZipRecruiter's pre-written invite to apply message, so you can personally reach out to your favorite candidates and then encourage them to apply sooner, because you want to get this stuff done. Carl, you run a business. You know that in today's world, time is money, and you want to get things done fast, and you don't want to go on like a wild goose chase. Well, ZipRecruiter is streamlining everything for you.
Yeah, Bob, it's you can't, in the way today's industry work, it can't be trial and error. You've got to be able to streamline, get the right person in there, because if you get the wrong person, they kind of dilly-dally around and waste your time, and you're missing timelines, and you're like, we got to get another person. Then you're interviewing somebody else, and you hope that's the right person because they said the right thing. ZipRecruiter eliminates that process. They, like you say, they streamline it. They match it for what you want. And so they take that whole trial and error process out. They give you what you're looking for.
ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology is the key. So forget about the other sites. Let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for. that needle in a haystack, so to speak. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Think about that. The first day you're getting a quality candidate. You're saving yourself time and money. Try it for free. So we have an exclusive web address. If you're watching this show, exclusivity. ZipRecruiter.com/audio, AUDIO. That's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Well, if you were going to go on ZipRecruiter and dial up the perfect middle linebacker in today's NFL, for years there was London Fletcher, and of course you played with the Hall of Famer and Harry Carson and Pepper Johnson. But Bobby Wagner, even at 35 years of age, or last year he was 34. Carl, when you watch the tape, you know, you talk about ZipRecruiter's matching powerful technology. The dude's got powerful matching technology in his head. He starts to move on the snap of the ball, and his batting average of going to the right spot is 99%.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy who does his homework. You know, Bobby Wagner at 34 or basically 35 years old doesn't move like a 35-year-old, and he certainly plays like he's in his 20s because he's so fast, right? His processing is fast. And that means for when I look at him and the way he anticipates plays, it's not luck. He's done his homework, and you can tell he spends a lot of time understanding what teams want to do and blocking schemes, because you can window dress him until, you know, the cows come home, and he'll be like, the play's going here. I don't care about all of this stuff. I see one key and I know where I have to be. And he plays fast. He's decisive. He's physical, and he plays at the line of scrimmage or on your side. Very seldom do you see him down the field coming off of a block, jumping on the pile. He's a downhill linebacker.
Now, the Giants in this game, you know, just based on last year, Carl, one thing about Washington defensively last year, they were 30th against the run. They were actually worse than the Giants against the run. They gave up 137 yards a game. And I would think that in order to have some balance, you know, the Giants are going to have to stay committed to running the ball. Now, that doesn't mean pounding it into the line every first and second down, because a little 5-yard pass in the flat on first down is like a run. But they have to stay consistent in running the football and getting positive yardage on first down against this group.
They do. There are two components to this offense in how they start. One is making sure you're clean on special teams, so you don't have any procedural stuff that sets your offense back, right? Any holding on kickoff returns and things like that, where you have a good return, but it's got to come back, right? You want to be clean there. And then when you start your first down, you've got to make sure that everybody knows the snap count, right? You've got to stay ahead of the chains before the ball is even snapped on the first down. So then attacking Washington, now you got to account for not only Wagner, they got some no names there that they count on, but another name that we hear a lot is Frankie Luvu, right? And Luvu can get in the backfield. He's a great pass rusher, but he's really quick at the line of scrimmage too. So he makes a lot of tackles for loss. So half the battle is accounting for their two best players on defense up front. And then just being fundamentally sound, right? Again, they don't do the same things that the Dallas Cowboys do, but there's familiarity because Dan Quinn, right? So they're going to hit some gaps. They're going to be one gap at times. And so they don't have, like I said, they don't have the Cowboys type players, but schematically there's some familiarity with that scheme with the Giants, but the Giants have always struggled with Dan Quinn's defenses. So they've got to make sure that they're fundamentally sound. But I just think in order for them to have a chance offensively to really get ahead of the sticks, is to play a clean, penalty-free series without procedural calls, right? Because as soon as you hit a, 2nd and 15 and you haven't even snapped the ball, or 1st and 15 and you haven't snapped the ball, you're in trouble. And it decreases your chances of scoring by like 65%.
Yeah, and they added Von Miller, who's 36. He's got 129 and a half career sacks. And if you wind up finding yourself in those bad down and distances, well, now you're playing into their hands with Luvu and Von Miller coming off the edges, because Von Miller can still get after the quarterback. Last year in 13 games with Buffalo, he didn't start any of them. He had 6 sacks. So, the elite Hall of Fame like pass rushers never forget how to rush the passer. Don't give him the chance.
No, but don't give him a chance. And if you find him out there on rundowns, run at him. You wanna just give him more to think about than just rushing the passer, right? You wanna just keep taxing him until he gets the 3rd down, and you take a little bit of the energy out of his pass rush, because he's so crafty. And like you say, the good one's the great one, and he was a great one. They never forget how to rush the passer, and they know how to set it up. And I'm sure he's done his homework on Andrew Thomas if he plays, and Marcus Bowe and James Hudson. He's looked at them all, so I'm sure he knows what he needs to do. And chances are they're going to try to attack in the middle of the Giants' offensive line too, in the pass rush, and maybe some 2-man games that will involve John Michael Schmitz.
Carl, the red zone, the Giants were dead last in red zone offense last year. They had only 19 touchdowns, 12 field goals. They had to go for it on a lot of 4th downs because they were losing. So they had, they were stopped on downs 4 times. They took a knee once, but they committed 7 turnovers in the red zone, 4 interceptions and 3 fumbles. They got to be better there. But it kind of goes back to the quarterback play. And it takes us to Russell Wilson here. So doing a little research, I came up with these numbers. And we always hear Deebo talk about, quarterback play and how important it is, and how, the last 2 years, the Giants starting quarterbacks who's ever been out there have a combined record of 9-25. Okay. Russell Wilson, we hear about Russell Wilson and he's not the same player and all that other stuff. But with that said, I mean, I'm not knocking your socks off with this, but he's 13 and 13 over the last 2 years as a starter. He's averaging 213 yards a game. The Giant quarterback's 185. He's averaging 7.1 an attempt. The Giants quarterbacks were 6.2. In the last 2 years, 42 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. The Giants quarterbacks combined 27 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. And over the last 2 years, he's had a passer rating of 97. The Giant quarterbacks over the last 2 years have had a passer rating of 81.8. So the guy can still play, maybe not at his MVP level, but still, I mean, just having him out there has to be an upgrade for this team.
Sure. It is, because the offense isn't hard. And when I say it isn't hard, you can trust Russell to make pre-snap and post-snap decisions, his reads, right? And he's on the same page with his wide receivers. That's what Coach Kafka and Coach Deebo want, that, if they call something, if they dial something up, he won't miss it, right? And we've seen, and this is not breaking news, folks, but we've seen Daniel Jones miss guys or be late getting the ball to guys. And, just like what comes to mind is the game in Germany, had Wandell on a deep cross, right? Completely didn't see him. He threw a check down. Or You have Malik Neighbors, who was wide open, and he basically threw a punt to him, right? And that could have been a walk-in touchdown. Those are things with Russell Wilson that they trust that he can process and understand a lot easier and a lot faster than what they had at quarterback in Daniel Jones. And, it's just the fact that, Russell has been a league MVP. He's been a Super Bowl winner. He's been the two. He's seen just about everything that a team can throw at him. So it stands to reason that they're going to get better quarterback play with him there because he can still play, right? He's just not thinking the game. He can still play the game. So I think that they have a better opportunity to really maximize what Kafka and Dable want to do offensively.
Yeah, and over the last 2 years, they've been awful with pass plays of over 30 yards. Last year, they only had 12. Neighbors had 5. Slayton had 5. The longest one was a 59-yarder. Russell
And
Wilson
it's also
will
offensive line play.
Right.
Offensive
but it's
line
all
has
tied
something
hand
to
in
do
hand,
with
right?
that.
Because the quarterback and the offensive line, it's tied hand in hand, right?
Right. But when you have the time, you've got to make great decisions with the football. And offensive coaches just don't, well, I know Dable doesn't and Kafka don't, call plays not accounting for the effectiveness of the offensive line. So, there's always, in case of emergency, option within their offense. But if all else is working well, this is your play down the field. And you've seen, many times the offense just looks hard, and then you go back and look at the film when there was protection or when the quarterback was able to buy time, they just didn't get the ball where it was supposed to go or where it could have been a big play. And I think that's where the experience of Russell Wilson will factor in.
He's going to play in his 200th game on Sunday and make his 200th start. He joins Peyton Manning, Matt Ryan, and Matthew Stafford as the only players in NFL history in their 200th game to make it their 200th start. He needs 98 passing yards to pass Vinny Testaverde and move into 16th. 112 yards moves him into 15th, past Carson Palmer. And he's 16 touchdown passes short of Eli Manning. He's currently 12th in NFL history with 350 touchdown passes. Hey, one of the things that we'd like to talk about here on the show is protecting your personal data. And right now, I'm sure you all get the spam emails, you get the phone calls. It feels like everything is a data breach constantly. And it's common enough that it feels like everybody's vulnerable. You get hit with all of this stuff and you're like, who's getting my information? Well, Delete Me is where you need to go because they're going to protect your privacy. It's plain and simple. What do data brokers do? Well, they're going to take a profit off of your data. They're going to sell all of your information. Mm-hmm. Anyone on the web can buy your private details, identity theft, phishing attempts. You get harassed. You can't get off these email chains because somebody sold it. Your name, contact information, social security, home address, information about your family members. Data brokers compile all of it. Well, the New York Times Wirecutter has named Delete Me their top pick for data removal services. So, listen, we both have online presence. It's important to us. Should be important to everybody. You don't want identity theft, doxing, all that other stuff. Delete Me, Carl, can be a big help.
Well, and I can tell you why it's a big help, because there's not a legislation in place that will prevent people from data mining. And, you get these spam calls because some broker has passed on all the information and people are just calling, right? I don't know how many times I've gotten started off with text messages about my Easy Pass being overdrawn and I need to pay $800 for all my violations, to even, some of the trademarks I've applied for. All of a sudden, the U.S. Trademark Office has sent all your information out. So every trademark lawyer in the world they're not emailing, they're calling me now and leaving me messages. And I'm like, how is this even a good thing? So I think to help yourself, be relieved of a lot of this stuff, Delete Me is the way to go.
So take control of your data. Keep your private life private. Sign up for Delete Me now at a special discount. For our listeners, you're going to get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting the word PRO, P-R-O, to 6400, 64000. The only way to get 20% off is to text PRO, P-R-O, to 64000. That's PRO to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. Make sure you get a step ahead of all this. Check out Delete Me. Carl, speaking of trademarks, I got my starter training camp shirt on. Very comfortable. Love the blue.
Well, 2025 starter training camp t-shirt. That marks the new, I think it's the new beginning of, this Giant football era with new quarterback, and obviously Abdul Carter, but just kind of a new beginning. So I thought that was a significant camp for me. That's why I wanted to commemorate it.
So what about the Home Shopping Network bonanza on
Well,
your
here's the
birthday
thing,
last
Bob.
week?
If you missed the training camp drop and it sold out, I was on Home Shopping Network. And I did the best value, and a lot of our viewers and listeners went on. But we had a 3-in-1 bundle that was super, super inexpensive. It was affordable, right? So let me just say this. I have the cost of fandom is rising, from parking to food to whatever, right?
No kidding.
I'm sensitive to that. So I want to make sure that product I put out there, some of my product is premium, and it's not for everybody. Like the starter stuff, premium, not for everybody. This, what I'm wearing, was just as good quality, was on Home Shopping Network. And you could have bought stuff for the entire family, your entire crew, from Home Shopping Network. So if you missed it, you missed a great opportunity. This is like a 3-in-1. I have a hoodie, have a long sleeve tee, have a short sleeve tee. It may be some still on hsn.com. Go look. But then, I just want to make sure that, fans want to buy product, right? I want them to buy my product. But I am also, like I said, sensitive to the cost of fandom, right? And so I always want to have an entry point where somebody can say, I got it. I love it, and I didn't buy it because it was cheap and it looks cheap. I bought it because it was affordable and it looks great because my company made it, obviously. So that's where we are. And then I have another drop tomorrow. There's a big fan event. Yeah, there's a big fan event at the American Dream. And okay. I have another really cool commemorative t-shirt, which I'll post later on today. It's the 4 rings. It's a championship 4 rings t-shirt. Really cool. It's at Lid. So when you if you guys are showing up at American Dream, I'll be there from 3 to 4:30. So I'll sign it if you want. But get there early. Go to American Dream. And you'll see, I'll post a t-shirt. But it's a limited edition. And it's only going to be there as long as supplies last. We're trying to make some really cool collector's items for people, because what I found out, and my daughter lives in California. She's younger when I play, Carla. She's got so much cool stuff from when I played. And it's just like collector's piece of stuff that you'll have that you'll be like, okay, this is something that not every fan has of their team, because not every team has won a Super Bowl. Not every team has won 4 rings. And so we try to create some really cool stuff that, kind of transcend like the fan gear where you wear it and you throw it away. I want you to keep my stuff. I want you to feel proud to have it so that you can show it. I got this one last year. And, somebody who does that well is License Plate Guy. He's got a collection, not only my stuff, but a lot of cool stuff from over the years. And it's just really cool graphics. So if you're at American Dream, go by Lids. It's right down the hall from the main stage where we'll be, and get the 4 rings. It's a pretty cool graphic, and I'll post it later on today.
I actually thought of something funny.
What?
You know who else collects stuff? Paul Dottino. But he doesn't realize he's collecting.
That's true. That's true. He wears it quite a bit too. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we want to thank FanDuel for being a part of Believe in Giants, helping grow it. Make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment, like us. If you're listening to the podcast, go to the shop, get yourself a Believe in Giants mug. To have your coffee in, watch your games, put an adult beverage in there, whatever it is you're watching. Any other thoughts about this game? The Commanders have swept the Giants for only the second time since 2011 last year, and they haven't won 3 in a row against the Giants since the last meeting of 98. They swept the Giants in 99, and they won the first meeting in 2000. I believe it was at Giants Stadium because I was in Australia because that was during the Sydney Olympic Games. I had missed that game.
Mm-hmm.
I remember LeVar Arrington had a big game. So the Giants are going to try to snap this Commander streak here of 2 in a row. Any other thoughts about the game before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, listen, everybody talks about the schedule. The Giants have played the Commanders well. They've got to finish the deal. And what they can't do is hurt themselves. They had both hands tied behind their back when they really needed it in their first game without a kicker, right? So
without a kicker.
I think they should feel good about being able to compete in the game. Obviously, corralling Jaden Daniels is key. If you can make him semi one-dimensional, which is a task, and whatever that one dimension is, he's damn good at it, right? He's got an incredible arm, great accuracy, but if that's all he's got, meaning you can somehow corral the running, then you can at least focus on trying to take some of that away. But every time he drops back, he's a dual threat. So you've got to really send a message defensively that we're not going to let you run all over us. And if you run, we want to hit you. But he's super fast. So the Giants have got to discourage that and then try to play, the one dimension that he's super, super good at. And offensively, just, run the football. Stay on track, stay on schedule, and manageable down the distance.
All right. We'll be back next week recapping what happened between the Giants and the Commanders. Again, we want to thank FanDuel for being part of the Believe in Giants family. And, Carl, how do we like to end this thing?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in Giants.